This is the Alliance Dispatch. Do you read us?
Welcome back to another Alliance Dispatch. I am Dan Black, Dispatcher number 1, dancing along to an incredible bop our main man James here had created.
Yeah, and that's me. I'm James, main man bop / Dispatcher number 2. We're coming at you today talking about a little game called Star Wars Unlimited and a little event that went down in the UK. It was Twickenham. I believe there was 222 players or somewhere along that line.
Yeah.
And our Dispatcher number 1, Danny, was there. Danny.
Yeah, I like Dispatcher number 1, Dispatcher number 2.
I hate you so much.
I'm really, as long as I'm number 1, that's all I care about in my heart.
You got in there first, what can I say?
I did, yeah.
Save the best for last.
Yeah, no, it was really, really cool. Twickenham, what a day. I've now played at 2 of the UK's homeland sporting venues. I've played at the Oval a couple of years ago at a Keyforge pre-release, and now I've played at Twickenham for a Star Wars U launch event. So Wembley Stadium next. I can make my dad proud. 222 people was wild. 3 weeks in, I think we are.
Something like that. Yeah.
And it was just, I don't think any of the Destiny events got that high.
No, we've had it's been crazy for TCGs in recent years, to be fair. And as we all know, the dice in Destiny put a lot of people off that might have played otherwise. I also think the timing of Unlimited after sort of coming off the back of Lorcana being so big and then sort of, it seems anyway, like it's fading down. Maybe there's a bit of cross-pollination there. I think there's just a lot of things going right for it in terms of its timing.
Yeah. Do you reckon Star Wars is in a better place as well than
it
was back in 2016 when Destiny launched?
Maybe not 2016. Actually, maybe 2016. Definitely 2019 when Destiny finished, when we'd had Rise of Skywalker, Return of Skywalker, whatever. Last Jedi and Return of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Last Jedi is a good film, fight me.
It is a good film.
Return of Skywalker, whatever.
Rise of Skywalker, the worst piece of Star Wars ever produced. Ever.
It's the only film. It's the only Star Wars film I think I've watched twice.
I've only watched it once at the cinema on midnight, and I haven't even entertained the idea of putting it back on.
Yeah, as always, you have to one-up me. So, anyway, I think it's better than 2019. I don't know if it's better than 2016, but sure. I think some of that vitriol has gone anyway, so you've got more casuals enjoying it maybe now. I don't know. What was it like being back in a room full of fans, full of other passionate nerds?
Yeah, it was really surreal. As I was kind of walking just round to the entrance, I was just clocking a couple of people I recognised back from the Destiny days. And then once I got into the hall, I kind of went into the corner and took a big photo, which I sent to you, I think, to be maybe you can edit it in over the top of here. Bit of edit work for you. And I was just it just felt wild to kind of be back at a big TCG event again. I was on the day, I was I just don't think I've been to one since Destiny in 2018. I think my last big one was. Or early 2019 maybe, but then I forgot that I did a a Flesh and Blood Nationals last year, but that was invite only, so it's capped up at 130.
Yeah, 120, 130.
Yeah,
110.
Yeah, so and that was downstairs in Darksphere in London, so that was still in a gaming shop, so it wasn't really a big convention hall, which. They had a bar, didn't get a single drink all day. Focusing. I should have just drank all day. Maybe it would have made me play better. Do a James. Do your best work hungover or drunk, don't you?
I did, yeah, I used to. Yeah, I can't do that anymore. I think I'd throw up on the table. But yeah, that was my best Destiny performance as well. Trying to keep up with our friends and not doing a very good job of it. So wanting to do anything other than be playing cards, and I'd be performing my best. So
yeah,
who knows how that works. But so you didn't get any of the probably very overpriced beer.
No. Or the overpriced lunch as well. It's £12 for a baked potato.
Wow,
that's event food for you, isn't it?
Was London event food as well?
London event food. Yeah, I walked down the corner shop, got some roast beef monster munch.
Classy guy. And they powered you on for epic performance. If you've not heard already, guys, Dan Black, Destiny champion 2017. He took down that Twickenham event and just completely. He got all those boxes. And hang on,
No, unfortunately, that was an alternate universe. I think Mr. Cool won the event.
right? Sorry, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
a million voices just cried out in pain.
Yeah.
Dan, what happened? What's going on? What happened to the Destiny champion? I thought you walk in there and just clean sweep.
Yeah. I thought I was just gonna walk in there, 8 games, not drop a single game. No, I didn't. I was aiming for a top 32, and finished in about 79th, I think it was in the end there. So just short off 64. I needed to win one more game, and I would have got myself 5 extra packs. Whoop, whoop. But yeah, we can go through kind of just a bit of a rundown of how the event went. So you can see here for our visual viewers, who is going to be everyone. I'll get the podcast bit sorted out at some point. So we did 8 rounds. I went 4-4 by the end of the day. I'm just going to do a really quick kind of breakdown of who I played, what they were using, and if I remember anything great from that particular game. So first up, we had Sam, who was playing a hero deck. She was very much a Magic player who had just come across to Star Wars, hadn't really bulked out most of it. She built a hero deck that morning. I think she said she's a London local, so it wasn't that hard for her just to jump across the city. Not a lot to really say here. I think we all know that hero isn't where she needs to be at the moment. So I took it down 2-0. The big moment from this one is this was the round where we all got handed out our 5 packs for participation. Cracked open my packs. I got a cunning. Is the big shout out, and a hyperfoil. Don't get cocky.
Nice.
And then she cracks open her very last pack, and there was a showcase Krennic straight on top for her. So I just grabbed the wrong stack of 5, didn't I?
So you got 5 packs for the entry.
For the entry, yeah. So 15 quid for the ticket. I won my ticket, but even if you had just bought it, 15 quid for 5 packs is quids in.
Really good.
Yeah.
That's the prize, actually. That's giving them away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they were literally, first place was 24 boxes for 15
Well,
quid.
yeah, I knew it was quite top heavy pricing. I don't think I quite appreciate it was 5 packs for 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's,
I would assume that the boxes were obviously gifted by Asmodee.
Yeah, it's like a big celebration
to launch the event, right? So yeah, I think that kind of wraps up round 1.
So you won round 1, but she won round 1, really.
Well, yeah, because she pulled a fucking Krennic, man. He's a sick.
Was that a new teenie, or was that not quite a new teenie?
Nah, that wasn't a new teenie.
Okay.
That's not a new teenie. So after that one, I went up against a Luke control deck. You can kind of see it here. It's just Luke, ECL, and then running all the good hero stuff, really. When I originally saw this list, saw the home ones, and I went, "Oh God, if it goes out of hand, I'm gonna get stomped." And game 1 absolutely went out of hand. He got home 1 down. I couldn't take it out, and he was healing like 5 every turn, and I was just like, let's just scoop. So I just called that one nice and early. Went into game 2. Shoved a load of my high-end like control stuff in. Not loads of it. I think I only put in 3 reinforcement walkers. I don't think I saw any reinforcement walkers, but just managed to like really knuckle down on like playing Boba more aggro, and managed to take the next 2 games for the win.
So you adapt because you're quite a mid-range Boba, right? So
yeah.
I guess you adapted your sideboard to just be more aggressive. Is that right?
No, well, my Boba deck was built against the Sabine, and as you may have seen on the previous screen, I didn't play one all day, which was kind of my big failure, I guess. I kind of read the meta was going to be nice and aggressive. It was not. It was super mid-rangey and super control. So every time I sat across a control deck, I'd lose game 1, then I'd sideboard in, and then win 2 games, mostly.
Nice.
We'll get onto that. But yeah, I just want to point out just something about just Luke Jedi Knight is how cheap he is compared to Boba and Vader, and yet is maybe not as good, but like as important to a blue hero deck as Vader is to a black green deck. His ability to, like, if something of your thing has died, and he can just on play -6/-6 something. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Probably
almost going to remove like so much stuff in the game, and you can trade your own guys in to bring it down to 6 health to then play Luke to then remove it. Like,
I think that is true. I think there's a weird, like I spoke last week about Boba and Vader being overpriced a bit, in my opinion, which has sort of priced me out of cunning and villainy in general. But I've also then sort of the money I would invest in those, I've diversified and got all of the sort of hero legendaries because I think they're underpriced.
well, yeah.
So
You look at Millennium Falcon, which is probably the best hero legendary in the game, and it's 15 quid, tenner.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and you compare it to something like Boba Fett, who is just statted above curve at a 3-drop, but isn't spectacular. Like, Boba Fett didn't really do a lot for me over my 8 games, other than be like, look at this big spooky body, you need an answer for this right now. And if they had the answer, they would play it on him. Like, the amount of times he got treacherous and was stolen away from me, or, you know, no good for me dead and was tapped out. The amount of like impact he actually had dealing damage or killing units was so low because he just demanded so much response from.
There is value in that, right? Like,
They
call it like the distraction Khan effects in Warhammer 40,000, right? There's that, like, you put all your money or your points into this one thing, and all it's really good for is getting killed. But then your opponent is putting all of their resources into destroying that one thing, so maybe there is intrinsic value there.
Yeah, and unlike the few times where, you know, my Boba did get traitorous, then you just play a waylay on it, it bounces back to your hand, and then they've spent 4 resources, I think it is, on cunning 5. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but you know, you're actually fairly valuing that a bit. It's not great for costs and card and stuff, but it's a nice little way to get out of it for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
So then after that, we went into my first mirror match, which was Yellow Boba, and I was going to say Spanish friend, Spanish acquaintance, Arturo, has been absolutely loving Mono Yellow Boba. And I got a message off Miguel, who's an old Star Wars Destiny player, this morning as well, being like, yeah, I'm also playing tons of Yellow Boba. So I think the Spanish are just into Yellow Boba.
Love. I can't believe, I thought you were going to be speaking about someone else, and I can't believe you're describing Arturo as an acquaintance. He's going to be so upset. That's harsh.
I'm going to wait for him in my DMs later.
Yeah.
So I was quite comfortable going into this matchup. I knew the tricks that that Mono Yellow Boba would do. Basically, Cunning's so good at a 4-drop. It did wonderful things to me every game. Just, you know, tapping my units. He did really favour the give one of my units +4. And basically every time he did that, I had a piece of removal to bounce it back to their hand or something. You know, I think the bowing 2 units and making me discard a card is probably the strongest way to play Cunning.
I think you're right. I think it gives, if you're playing it when your opponent has resources, it's already not ideal, right? Like, if you're exhausting stuff, you want to be playing that early. Yeah. And it sounds like that's what they're doing, but then they're also going, hey, now please remove this.
Yeah. And you're like, okay. Yeah. So, and you know, if you play discard, there's a chance that you could discard that bit of removal, which then keeps your. And he wasn't buffing crazy big stuff. It was like the shielded smuggler guy. So he turned into a 6/2 with a shield. It's pretty good, but when you just bounce him and he's just like, well, now I've got to pay 2 more resources to play a mediocre body again. It's.
Those are the kind of mistakes that creep in early when people don't really. They know the set, or they know most of the set, but then they it's not quite twigged what you have in your deck available to you. Like, even though he's playing yellow black and you're playing yellow black, you need to like pass that information on the fly, which I think in 6 months or a year's time people will be doing very naturally. But in those moments you're like, well, this is going to be great for me, and then they play the same card that you have 3 of in your deck that bounces it back to hand, and you're like, that card. Yeah, that's a thing that can happen. Yeah. So I think that is just those growing pains of a new game for sure.
Yeah, sure. Then we go on to my first mirror match. This was against Gollum, who I think ended up finishing about 3rd. And we had fairly similar decks. You can see that he's kind of got a bigger, well, you wouldn't have seen my deck, but he's got a much bigger top end. He's got the 2 reinforcement walkers in there in the main deck, which will definitely help him out against those control decks game 1. I kind of stop out at the Vader. And first game, I kind of just ran over him. Second game, he ran over me. I definitely had some big misplays. There was one point where I looked at my resources and went, oh, I didn't resource at the start of this turn. Whoops. But then actually, I ended up playing all of my cards out that turn. So it was actually the right play. Maybe I had already worked that out when I'd gone to resource. But I definitely remember looking down being like, why am I still on 5 resources? It's turn 5. I should be on 6. What have I done? And it ended up being fine. So maybe I had already worked it out and I had just second guessed myself, but I do not remember working it out.
Yeah, it's one of those big tournament events, isn't it?
Yeah, and then the third game, I drew fairly mediocre and he just curved me. It was absolutely disgusting how every turn he was just like, here's my best card. And I was like, oh, cool, I've got nothing. What if I play this? And he's like, well, that's cool, but I'm going to raise you with like this. And I'm like, oh, I can't deal with that either. So he just completely ran over me in the third game. And it was just, it's what happens. Yeah, I needed to play tighter on my second game. I didn't. There was definitely some misplays that I don't remember that I did throughout that, where I just didn't do the correct line of play and stuff that I should have been doing.
Small margins, but they come out in
for sure. And like you've got to make sure, and that's kind of the takeaway from that game, right? It's like you've got to make sure that you're focusing as much as you can, because you can't rely on like, oh, I messed that one up, and I've got we still got one more game, but then that could be the game where you just get curved out and there is nothing you can do.
Sure.
So it felt bad, but also it was just like, it is what it is. That's how card games work. And I was mainly gunning for the top 32, so I knew I could take 2 losses. And I'd already gone 3-0 at that point, so I was going to have a good strength of schedule. So I was going into it fine.
Yeah.
The next up though, this is where it all went very downhill for me. I played against this gentleman who's running a 28 event Darth Vader deck, which, 16 units, 28 events, 6 upgrades for the Fallen lightsaber and the Darth Vader's lightsaber. It was something that I hadn't even crossed my mind. I hadn't play tested against. My brain just didn't comprehend how I play a unit. Well, I'm going to play this event to get rid of it. Okay, well, I'll play this unit. It's like, well, I'm going to play this event to get rid of that. And I was like, I see a problem here. And in my first game, I had so many cards in my hand. I probably had got up to about 15 cards in my hand, because I had so many events myself. But all my events are like bounce units back to hand, or play this on a unit to give it extra attack, and there just weren't any units in play.
That's really interesting in this sort of, like, obviously every card can be used, etc., etc. But in this sort of game, you can, in fact, we call it IP yourself, intellect penalty yourself. You're just holding on to cards that aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting that you can come across something like this, which is so off the wall from what you've experienced, and suddenly you're like, oh, like all of your cards are doing stuff. And also it sounds like his whole game plan is to presumably just bring Vader out or get to turn 8.
You get to turn 8, Vader comes out, slap a lightsaber on him. He's also running Emperor Palpatine, so he also slams that on turn 8 as well. That does 6 damage, so that will clear out anything you've got in play with all the extra control he's got. And so game 1 ended with Palpatine with a lightsaber, Vader with a lightsaber, and Palpatine out. And I'm just like, okay, cool. I managed to so he runs 2 copies of Repair, and then in the first game I did manage to get him to 22 health, and I managed to play maximum firepower on a 7th Fleet Defender to get up to 5 damage. Then he force choked the shield off, or used something to ping the shield off it, and then I surprise striked on it for 8 damage straight into his face and killed him. So I won the first game, but I was like, I'm not going to be able to. He's not going to fall for that again. Getting the 8 damage off a 3 damage unit is quite the play.
Wow.
So then going into 3 and 4, I didn't quite aggressively. I should have just stuck my whole sideboard into my deck, took all the early game minions out, just so that I'm dropping bigger threats. In the second game, I did drop Relentless to be like, haha, I'm going to cancel the first event you play on turn 9. I was like, yes, okay, this is where he's going to swing it. And then he just drops the Avenger, which is on play. Your opponent picks and chooses and destroys one of their units, and I only had Relentless out, so I was just like, okay, I guess I'll bin that now. And then that's basically what happened for the next 2 games. I don't think I was... It caught me off guard, and I don't think I'll go into that. That won't happen to me again.
Yeah.
Like,
I was going to say, do you know where it ended up at all, or no?
Yeah, so that was actually a pair down. I had that round. So he ended up 3-4 and then dropping at the end of round 7. So he didn't finish crazy high at all.
I was going to say, it sounds quite cool, but it sounds very easily disrupted by anything with...
Yeah, and I think anyone who was playing into that control matchup more would have just ran away with it. Because there are so many events that if you have your other ways of getting around it and stuff, there is ways that you can just burst it as well. Like I did manage to do the 8 damage swing and stuff. So I think if you can get something to stick and swing, and you just manage to do that a couple of times, you'll get away.
I feel like over the course of the game, probably struggle to contain. I mean, we'll go back to Sabine.
Yeah.
But imagine the amount of units they can push out. It must struggle a little bit. It sounds quite inefficient.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. It definitely isn't running super laser. I don't remember him playing. He's got 1 super laser blast. So if you manage to go wide, I don't think he's got enough removal to see through. But he also is running 3 force throws and was constantly making me throw things at my own stuff. So I ended up just drawing 2 cards every turn. So I kind of lost my hand advantage in those games as well. So when that happens and you're not drawing big impactful stuff, you just can't see a game out when you're just drawing like 2 and 3 drops, which is
it's a super interesting idea for a list because it sort of attacks the game and like the way you play the game and the way you build your deck quite interesting at a different axis. So I might have to check that out. That sounds interesting. And maybe there's a deck there. It sounds pretty cool. Yeah,
for sure. And then the next I played against a guy who came over from France, and he was just playing kind of classic Iden, and he I can't remember. I think we ended up going. I ended up losing this 2-1. I did manage to take a game from him, and I did sideboard very aggressively, kind of learning my lesson from the game before. So the first game he just completely ran away from me because my deck wasn't built to play against control. I was like, I'm basically forfeiting the first round to sideboard in everything to have better matchups on games 2 and 3. And I ended up winning game 2, but in game 3 he just stomped me out. There's not really a lot to say there, but there you can see his list. Well, you can't, but everyone else can. But it was a very similar feels. Like the first game when he beat me, he didn't even bring Iden out. Like he just didn't need to. Like I was just so far behind, and it kind of really showed the weakness of my main deck going into a control matchup when your opponent doesn't even need to bring their leader out to beat you. It's it's a vibe, but not a vibe I'll be unfortunately making that mistake again.
Yeah, we had some comments on Facebook and stuff. Obviously, we stay in pretty close contact to all of that. Some people saying maybe best of 3 isn't the best for this like format for this game, but it sounds like the lessons that you in particular anyway learned between those rounds and able to change your deck and stuff. It sounds like you're a bit of an advocate for best of 3. Is that right? Do you think it's
absolutely. And I would assume the person who said that is a control player. Because I think that what you're really going to struggle with in this game is when 2 control decks meet each other, getting those games done in the time limit.
So it's a negative for control, but probably a net positive for everyone else.
Yeah, and I think most people who would argue the best of 3 isn't the way is because they're playing a really slow deck, and when you're playing against another really slow deck, you're going to hit time, and the tiebreakers in this game aren't favourable at all if you do go to time.
Yeah, as well they shouldn't, right? Because otherwise you do get, friends scooping
Yeah.
each other into things.
Yeah, well, you can just concede. There is, I know in Flesh and Blood you're not allowed to concede your game, but in this you can straight up coin flip at the end or whatever in front of a judge, and it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I think you can't like randomly determine it, but
No, you can.
No, sorry, in Fab.
Oh, in Fab. No, sorry.
Yeah, you can't randomly determine stuff like that. But I think you can concede once. I think as long as anyway, there's some rules there, but there is weird concessions, and it is normally done to avoid a draw unless someone's being a bit of an arse about it, because a draw, like you say, is basically a loss. So generally speaking, someone will say, "All right, I concede because you were going to win that."
Yeah. So I kind of came out of that game glum. I had my 3 losses, but it meant so that I wasn't likely to get into top 64 anymore. So I was playing. Oh no, I was. If I had won my luck, you could have 3 losses, so I could still get my 5 packs, but I had lost my chance to win a box. So I went in against actually a guy who I'd spoke to the night before because he was staying in the same place that I was. And he was playing Green Boba. Was playing a more. I don't know how to. He ran like ISB agent earlier. Didn't run any Vaders. So it was like a more of an aggressive Boba.
Okay.
And so our game there ended up going to time. His sideboard was full of like reinforcement walkers, Blizzard ATTs, the 79th Legion,
sure,
and Admiral Piets to give the walkers ambush as well. So after so I won game 1 quite handedly, and then he kind of just slid in his entire side deck into his main deck, and then obviously pulled out 10 cards as well. And I just kept it as I was going. I was like, no, I've got this, it's fine. It wasn't fine. The control aspect of his deck did manage to come through. That game went longer. I did manage to get my ramp where I did game 1. So we ended up taking game 2. So game 3, I just kept it the same. I went, no, if I can get my ramp, I can get ahead of him and I can win. That game ended up going quite long as well, and we ended up hitting time. In the last phase, I dealt something like 15 damage to his base, and we were both sat on 23 damage to our bases, and we're both running Energy Conversion Lab. And by this point, I didn't realize that I could still win packs. And he was like, "Oh, do you want to just flip for it?" I was like, "Oh no, we'll just take the draw." And he was like, "Oh, but we can get packs." I was like, "Oh God." So I sat there. I was like, "Okay, we'll roll a dice for it, I guess." And I asked the head judge was one of the old Destiny judges, so I just said odds or evens. He went odd because we're all a bit odd. So I rolled the dice, rolled a 1, took the win. Which just feels shit.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel good at all. I don't know what the answer is. I think it's just play quicker. It's 3 weeks into the game.
Exactly.
No, there's definitely times where we both sat there with action paralysis. And it's just going to be about.
That's the learning point, I think. It is only 3 weeks in, and it is a back and forth game, and there are so many options to what you do that aren't immediately obvious.
Yeah, I'll say the controversial word right now because I don't think anyone said it yet. Chess clocks. Because every single turn-based game in existence, I think, at some point, someone's always said, we should use chess clocks.
Yeah.
Utini those people.
There's a couple of Utinis in there, I'm sure. Yeah, I think it's hard, isn't it? I think it's as well as being a new game, it's a game with such a broad appeal, which means you're not going to be playing, elite card gamers all the time, people that know these things, or necessarily even like I said in Fab a lot of the time, if there's a draw, the person that's winning will take it because the loser knows that they've lost either way. Like the draw is, for all intents and purposes, is a loss. Very rarely, and only with great besmirchment, I don't know what the word is, but only with great annoyance does someone go, no, this is a draw, I'm going to take the draw.
Well, I was speaking to someone on the day who was saying, like, my second and third game, we'd gone to time, and my opponents just went, you've beaten me, so you can have the win. And I was like...
Yeah, I think that's natural. I think it's just a case of the community hasn't adapted or adopted, sorry, I should say,
Yeah.
that
Yeah, see, I've got the mindset of the other way around though. I'm like, well, you're playing the control deck. You need to take the onus if the game doesn't
yeah.
finish. Like, you just need to fall on your
Yeah,
sword. Like, you've
I
not
think there is a
managed
bit
it.
of that as well. Like, I think I mentioned last week when you play something like Oldhim and Flesh and Blood, which is like the controliest fatigue
Yeah,
deck, which is like only win con was fatigue. Like my turns, like I do this.
yeah,
I had to a point, like, I sat down and said, I'm going to be like, I'm just going to zone in. I'm not going to speak. Like, you just have to justify it by like, we're going to our opponent is time, and every now and then you have to remind your opponent of that. If you're playing control, you have to get used to the idea of going, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to speed you up. And it's
yeah,
a horrible thing, but I've played against, I played calling Antwerp and I was on Oldham playing against all these people I've never met before,
yeah,
and you just have to be a bit of a dick, really,
yeah,
because everyone wants to sit down and enjoy a nice casual game of this or a nice casual game of that. But the practicality is, if you're not comfortable telling people to hurry up
yeah.
or to be really quick yourself and not to take any breath, always be on when that clock is on,
Yeah,
you shouldn't be playing control.
sure.
That's the hard truth of it, especially
Yeah,
in this game. Like, so that's the hot take.
yeah.
Clip it.
No, no, I think I agree. I think maybe as a community as well, we just need to kind of be more vocal with that, and that if you are playing a control or playing control, that you both can say you need to hurry up, and
Yeah,
people need to
100%.
not get funny about it. Like,
Yeah, I think obviously a celebration on the first 3 weeks of the game is probably not the place, and that's probably what people are going to say.
yeah,
I think going forward, when there is tournaments and there is things on the line, I 100%, if I ever play control, will be that person.
yeah,
And you can't be sorry. Like, I'm not going to be sorry about it, because that's just what it is. Like,
yeah,
people have said, "Oh, best of one," and it's like some of these games might go to time, and you're like, well,
yeah,
something's going wrong there because it's not designed to,
yeah,
and you just have to be that guy. Like, you have to do your turn as quickly and efficiently as possible, no thinking. You
yeah,
have to know what your deck does inside and out,
yeah,
and you occasionally have to say, I'm sorry, I have to hurry you here, because the clock is your enemy.
yeah, yeah, sure. Or you can just win the first game, slow play the rest of the world, and then take the win if you're the
Yeah,
control
I mean,
player.
that is also a problem, and I think, again, in Fab you can judge call for slow play.
Yeah,
uh,
and they did say at the weekend as well. You know, if you've got any issues, slow play and all that, call
yeah,
us over. We'll have a judge come watch your game and whatever. So
yeah,
I
I think
suppose
that's
we just need the
fair. Yeah, I
police.
think I think there just needs to be a psyche that is ported almost from Flesh and Blood of draws are losses. If you're losing that third game,
Yeah,
concede and just say fair play, you've got me.
yeah,
It's crap, but it is what it is.
yeah.
And also, if you are going to play that control deck, don't be a twat. And I
Utini.
don't know if that's an Utini.
I don't think it
Uh,
is. I think that's a
don't
British, not Utini, but an American Utini. Also,
well,
stop
it's that hard.
leaning to the right. Half your face is off. There you go.
There
Stop.
we go. Sorry,
Stop leaning. You're not cool.
sorry, guys. But yeah. So anyway, you should also, yeah. So you should concede when you're losing your third game, and
Yeah,
you should only play control if you're happy hurrying people up and playing really fast yourself.
yeah. Sure. Reasonable. My last game, just quickly, was against Chiric. It was an Ultron deck. Voltron. You know, where
What
you
is
just
that?
it's where you just build up one guy to be really, really big.
Oh, is that what they call that in this
Yeah.
game? That's cool. I
And the
like.
first game, runs two Redemption medical frigates, and he healed 16 damage off his base with two of them. And I lost that game by about 2 damage. So I had probably dealt. It was running Tarkin Town, which was on 25. I probably did about 40, 45, 50 damage that game, and I didn't win it.
That's crazy.
he
I
he
don't
was
think
just like, I can't believe I won that. Like, that was crazy. I shouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a cool deck, but I can't believe Tarkin Town is the play.
No, he was saying it's been crap for me the whole day.
Yeah.
He did, like, I would like ECL into space with a unit, like my
Mhm.
healing, the Star
Viper.
that heals, and it was on 1 damage, and then he was like, I'll just Tarkin Town it, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably reasonable use of Tarkin Town. But you said over the course of the day that sometimes you just even forgot that he had it. He probably should have just played a 30 health base.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a cool deck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like the redemptions really messed me up the first game. And he also had the Force Rose, what was just tuning up my hand. And I lost that game 2-0. Didn't take a single game from him. the annoying thing about Chirrut is like you'll deal all the damage to wound him, but then he can still just swing for like, 8 or 6 on that turn, and you're like, I've killed you though. Go away. So I think Chirrut down the line will definitely, if there is a way that you can start like restoring health off units. I think restore is only base, isn't it? Off the top of my head.
I think no. Well, I think they've got the heal, the one cost that heals 3. I think. It's
Oh yeah, yeah. But I mean, like Yoda's got restore 2.
Oh,
I think that can only
sure.
restore
Yeah,
your
that's
base,
only-
doesn't it?
Yeah, that's only base.
So I think if they do bring out more ways, there are definitely turns where I'd killed him, and then he was like, when he played a redemption, I'll take 1 damage off Chirrut, and then 7 damage off my base, and I was just like, okay, well now I need to throw this 2/2 into Chirrut to make sure he dies. But then he still gets to swing. It's I think there is definitely going to be something in a Chirrut deck, if not now, down the line, because he's just quite interesting. Just to be careful of like Power of the Dark Side is the bane of his life, I imagine. Like when you've only got him out, you've got to find good ways to cover him.
Yeah, I think Power of the Dark Side is one of those guys because you guys got access to deck lists before you played, which is interesting. That's never been a thing in any game I've played, so that's very interesting. And I think if you see a card like that, I really love that card, and I feel like I'm down on that card now, knowing that in OP you see your opponent's list first, because it's
still hard to make sure that you have extra units out.
Yeah, sure, but I feel like it's definitely a nerf.
Yeah,
an indirect nerf.
An indirect nerf, sure.
Not to have the gotcha moment. So I used to have 3 of it in my Inquisitor deck. I've gone down to like 1, I think.
Right.
Just because I think it's just got a nice spicy like gotcha.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, there's 3 of these, so you need to play around it every turn. If there's 1, the opponent knows there's 1, but it's less like
when is it going to come out and stuff?
Yeah, they can't. That could be resource turn 1, right? So they can't just play around it at that point. So I think that's the best way to play that card now.
Sure.
Maybe a 2 of, but I don't think it's a 3 of.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of just wraps up my 8 games. We started very late and we got a bit delayed over the first 3 rounds. So we finished about an hour behind schedule, which was like the last round happened, and it was like, right, if you got prizes, come up and grab them or get out.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't get to play in any of the side events, which I was always probably just going to play it out. Well, I mean, if I had won that last game, I would have won 5 packs. So maybe if I had taken some more losses, if I hadn't won that coin flip on turn 7. But then I think they had called side events about an hour before then that they weren't running anymore anyway. So I think the whole event would have felt a lot better had it been a 2-dayer. Doing like 6 rounds of Swiss with a top cut.
That sounds exhausting.
But you do a top cut day 2.
Yeah. But I mean, I would.
That's what I reckon they should do. So we did 8 rounds of Swiss that day, which is
yeah.
not my maximum. I did 10 rounds of Swiss. Well, so did you at the first Europeans for Destiny.
Yeah, it's too much.
And then they cut to top 8, and I finished 10th. Still bitter. Because that was like 120 players or something. And I just feel like card games, you don't need to, congratulations to Mr. Cool for winning it, awesome, great achievement. But also the luck required in not having that one bad game or like set of best of 3. There is something to be said about, topping Swiss is both skill and luck. When you top Swiss and then still have to then play, 3 games the next day, it definitely takes the more luck aspect of card games out of it at that point. Especially.
Regardless of how you do it, there's always it's luck and skill, and anyone that's won anything will tell you that.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
I think it's a weird one. I know there's going to be people that bubble if you do a top cut, but I do feel like you could do a 6 rounds and then a top cut or something, and it'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
8 rounds in one day sounds exhausting.
It was 9 till 7, so it was 10 hours. We had half an hour for lunch.
I love card games. I love playing card games. This game, especially right now, is awesome. But that is too much of a good thing. I think I get it. It's probably very expensive to host in somewhere like Twickenham.
Oh yeah,
I imagine so. Day.
Yeah,
they want to get it all done in one day. So fair enough. But going forward,
But and that's it. I wouldn't be against paying 30-40 quid for a weekend event.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
And then if you don't make day 2, then that's when you get to play your side events. Like I would love to have played some Twin Suns multiplayer stuff. Like
yeah, 100%.
By far, I think that was the most popping pods of the day,
Yeah.
as you could hear it over the microphone. I think there's good fun to be had there.
Yeah. I think I'm very excited to try it out. I've not really built a deck or anything for it, but I do want to try it out.
I have no idea how to play it yet, but I reckon it will be. It's like the commander of Star Wars Unlimited, isn't it? So
it's single turn and you get 2 commanders, and four of you. Yeah, it looks really, really, really good fun. So in terms of the day, the vibe obviously was immaculate.
Yeah.
It's a bit long, so you'd like it put into 2 in future, but I'm sure OPE are well aware of that. Anything else you want to cover?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that kind of popped up for during the day, which I just found a bit weird. One of my opponents, I forget which one it was, said to me that the game before, or a game he had earlier on the day, he had a rules question about how an interaction of so he had Boss Scout, his opponent had 2 cards out, one of them had 2 health left. And him and his opponent didn't know the interaction between, if he played Power on the Dark Side, would that trigger Bosk's 2 damage to kill the opponent's monster on 2 health first, leaving him with only 1 unit, which then obviously Power of the Dark Side would remove, or if you played it, would he then get to pick the 2 health monster and then ping the other guy for 2, leaving him with a monster alive? So they called a judge over to ask how the interaction would play out. And it was either he did tell him how it worked, or he came back later and said, I shouldn't have told you how it worked, or he couldn't tell him at the time how it worked. But basically, the judge wasn't allowed to say how that interaction would play out. He had to make the play, and then if it was done incorrectly, he could then go, it works like this.
Okay, so first,
so if you understood that, let me know, and I'll see if I can rephrase it. But
so Boss, so he's gonna basically, he's got 2 life left. So Bosk's ping, which is when you play an event, you can deal 2 damage to someone.
Yeah.
He's gonna play an event. He wants, I think, so basically, Boss he'll get to layer his triggers how he wants because he's the active player.
Yeah.
So Boss will kill something. He gets to choose to kill that thing with 2 health left. Then at Power of that, so will kill the other thing.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation of the rules at the minute.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's what the judge agreed on as well.
But at the time, the judge was like, I can't tell you that.
Correct.
Why?
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know whether or not the head judge today was just like, we can't do like rules queries like that. But I feel like what a judge is for, if not to ask a rules question, or are they only there to settle rules disputes? Like, have you got to get to the point where your own opponent is like in disagreement with how something works before a judge can step in? Like,
if that's how Sue's meant to be going forward, that's really toxic. I think
like it's super like not new player friendly, or
like that feels so bizarre. Like the majority of judge questions in Fab is like, how does this work before I do it, please?
Yeah.
Like, will this work like this? And they say yes or no, and they explain the rules interaction very clearly. They're very good at doing that.
Yeah. And I guess Flesh and Blood's also got it's got like the judge program as well, hasn't it? You got the exams and all of that kind of stuff, which not a lot of cards, obviously, like Pokemon and Magic. I assume Yu-Gi-Oh must have it as well. But it's kind of only those big 3 plus.
That's
that I'm aware that have that kind of level of like judge accreditation.
Support. Yeah.
So I don't know whether or not in the judging document that the judge team was sent for this event, in there it says that you're the Asmodee or Fantasy Flight have said you're not allowed to help players understand interactions within the game.
Just end that statement there, Danny. Just say you're not allowed to help players. Full stop.
Yeah.
That's because it's not like you can't give an opinion as a judge. You can't say this is the correct line or you should be doing it this like this.
Yeah.
But what you can say is that doesn't work like that. You need to do it like this, or and the inverse of that. This works like this. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Like that is a very common thing, and I'm really surprised that if that was
Yeah, and
handled
you know, this is
correctly.
just one person saying to this me offhand from later on. So if there are any
Yeah,
like judges who stumble across this, please clarify.
lots
It'd be
yeah,
really interesting to know if that is the hard ruling, so everyone is kind of aware of that
yeah,
going
definitely.
forward, or whether or not that was just a one-off incident. I
Yeah,
think it'd
very
be good to
weird.
know as well. Kind of the other thing, which annoyed me immensely at the time, and it took me about about 24 hours to realize why it annoyed me so much. So my round, going into round six, when I was playing the French guy in the Iden deck, um, he was late to the table, and that was because he had to go to the judges and ask that his placing was wrong. His game before was. He put it. It was down that he lost when he had actually won it, um, and then he came to the table and was like, "Oh, this is what's happened. This is why I'm late." And I was just like, "Oh, okay. So you've had it marked down as a loss, but you're actually a win. So now I've got a pair up. That sucks, but someone generally has a pair up."
Yeah,
And I just kind of sat there shuffling my cards, and I was just like, "So they know that they. So all they've actually done is just given him a win in his previous game after pairing the round." And
and
I
they
was just
definitely did. They redid the results, so he won.
Yeah, yeah. So they didn't change the pairings. They just went, "Oh, you've got to win now. Go play your game." And
Yeah, that's
it
not right.
annoyed me at the time, and I couldn't place it why. And it's because I used to run like Hearthstone events, like big major ones for like 50 grand, 100 grand prize pools and stuff. Um, and it's just like it's the integrity of your tournament. And
Mm.
I get that they're running late and they didn't want to have to repair and get everyone to move tables again. They did it round one because of an incident, but they wouldn't do it round six because they're now an hour late. So it kind of shows that they started off with the integrity to like make sure that the event was run efficiently, or like as it should be. But when
Yeah,
time restraints kind of kicked in, I think it maybe have taken 3-4 minutes to get everyone to move around again and sit back down. Um,
yeah.
it doesn't
I,
really matter, but it does to my
oh, it does.
adminning
Yeah,
heart. Like,
you should. Well, you shouldn't have been playing someone that had won their last round because you just lost your last round. And yes, there
sure,
are pair ups, but that means there's probably two or three pair ups where there should have been one or two pair ups. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that.
and
That.
that's what I kind of originally like after focusing because my opponent after I came back, my opponent was just like, "I don't understand why you've gone up there and complained," and I was just like, "Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's just play."
Mm,
Um, and it was only when I was just kind of like chilling out on Sunday, I was like, "Oh, that's what's annoyed me." It's like it's just the actual integrity of your tournament,
yeah.
and just making
I
sure
think.
that people are playing the right people. Like that's literally the whole point of the judge team
Yeah.
is to run a tournament correctly.
Well, also, like it's run by OPE or whatever, right? They're
Yeah,
literally an independent tournament organizing company. Like it's their literal definition of their job.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, Sorry to be like angry right now because I'm not angry, but I'm disappointed for you because you're right. It's not a big deal, but if they're okay with doing that because they don't want to repair because it's effort, that isn't tournament integrity, and that's their literal job.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
don't think that doesn't really sit right with me.
yeah. And it didn't
Either.
sit right with me at the time, and I couldn't place why. I didn't know if I was just annoyed that I had a pair up. Um,
Probably you are very petty.
Yeah,
Um,
and there probably is a good chance that I was just annoyed that I had a pair up after my two losses, so I needed
yeah,
3 wins at that point to get my box. So maybe it all just hit at the wrong time.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but,
Big
but
game.
but even on reflection, I still think I was correct to go raise my concerns after he had raised his concerns about it. Um,
Yeah.
and the
No.
fact that they didn't repair is just disappointing, and they just brushed me off and be like, "Well, you just got to go play," and I'm just like, "Okay." I'll go
Yeah.
play.
That's
And if I had beaten him, then that would have done great things for my strength of schedule and stuff. But they're also putting me in a position to get a really good strength of schedule that I didn't deserve because I shouldn't have been playing him.
true. That is very true. So yeah, there are these small things with. Excuse me. I'm gonna drink some water.
I will fill the.
All right. Right.
All right.
Thank you. Sorry, my voice started cracking. There are things like that happen with strength of schedule beyond just wins and losses,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're at that sort of top end of the tournament.
Yeah.
and that has massively impacted not just your schedule but his schedule and other people's as well.
Yeah.
Because they've not paired into the people they should have.
Yeah.
So you could have seen someone bubble out of top 8 that shouldn't have bubbled out top. Like this is like that butterfly effect kind of thing, right? Because everyone probably would have been repaired. It would just be like you and one other person. Like it's.
Oh yeah. Everyone would have played someone new pretty much.
So yeah, it's pretty weird, and I think that's a shame.
Yeah, and like it is just a launch event.
Yeah.
Prize pool was big for first place, and it was all right for the top 4, and then after that it was whatever. And that wasn't. Yeah, that isn't what annoys me about it. It was just the whole integrity of the tournament is like literally what that company is there to do, and they just kind of brushed me off, and it just felt bad. But I think that's kind of like all we need to say about it now. Otherwise, they ran a great event. A lot of the judges very familiar from the Destiny days, but I just thought I would just voice my my experiences of the day, both good and slightly negative.
That's what we're here for, hot takes. I'm sure we can work in a clickbaity title or something.
Whole tournament rigged.
Yeah. Twickenham dash rigged? Question mark?
Yeah.
No, that is very unfortunate. But like from what you've said to me and from what we've seen on Facebook and stuff, overall they did a really good job. So fair play to them. It's just that one problem really there.
And also, I wouldn't have known about that problem if it didn't happen to me personally. Like, did that happen more often than just that one time to me in round 6?
That's true.
Did the time pressure just kind of make them fumble their way through it? And in which case, don't do, maybe they've learned their lesson of, okay, we can't do 8 rounds in a day. And if they've learned that lesson moving forward, then cool.
I think it's huge, right? It's a huge undertaking. Even like we say, that is their job. Like it's a huge undertaking for a brand new game to do 200 plus players in a single room.
Yeah. I don't think anyone was expecting that many players. But also the number of players doesn't impact how long 8 rounds of Swiss would take.
No, that is true. They should. Yeah, you should know.
Yeah. Anything that I had a busy weekend of like playing the big decks and playing the big event. What was your weekend of stuff? SWU. I gotta get used to it. I just want to say Destiny all the time. Unlimited. What did you do any Unlimited over the weekend? Have you got some ideas brewing about decks for this week or?
Well, I've been playing a lot of Just Force table while you've been away, to be honest, babe.
It's probably about as good.
Yeah. Tell you what, that computer really hands it to me. Just been playing around with Casino Handmore. Love that deck. And the Inquisitor got 9th. I did put a shout out trying to find that guy, and so far nothing. So if you do know him, parents from London, that'd be great. It'd be lovely to speak to him because the Inquisitor is my other love in Unlimited right now because he's so fun. And to see him get 9th is pretty insane. And the top 8, obviously, as you probably all know by now.
Yeah, I've just
all Boba.
I've just pulled it up, and it was just Boba the whole way down. Is he a problem, James? What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, so coming from other card games, we both didn't do our research much into Unlimited, and we did our pre-release, and we've sort of spoken about that last week. But I pulled Boba in my pre-release, and immediately it was like, this hero is so broken. Not broken, but come on.
Efficient.
Overstated.
Great
overstated and comes in too early, and the turn you get 3 resources back. Like my pre-release, I had the red splash, and it was literally like I was doing removal events, then getting 1 back. So every removal event you can think of costs 1 less, essentially. Like that is insane. The fact it's not an action is also crazy because having initiative is just really good in this game.
Every time I play a Waylay, and it's just like, and that cost me 2.
It's good. I think he's probably pushed. I don't know if he's completely busted, but
no,
he is pushed. And I think it doesn't help that ECL is definitely broken.
I think it's the combination of Boba and ECL. Although 2 of the Boba Fett's in the top 8 were the mono yellow Boba, so it's not ECL pushing all 8 Bobas across the line, and he was the most played deck of the weekend as well.
But the conversion percentage still.
It's wild, I think it was like 19.5% of players were on Boba, and 100% of them got into the top 8.
100%.
Wow, 100% of the top 8 was Boba. So,
Yeah, exactly,
sorry,
yeah.
the other way around. Yeah, all.
It's a big old top 8.
Yeah, all the top 8 was actually made up of 30 odd people.
Yeah. I think it's early days. It's too early to say, and it was also one set in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he is kind of crazy, and
I think as well.
The same way Green Sabine was the problem.
Yeah.
A week ago.
Well, yeah,
Now
you
Boba's
mentioned Green Sabine, and it's like you look at these standings as I scroll down, and the first Sabine finished 23rd. And then the next one was 27th.
Because that warped a lot of your
31st.
testing. That warped a lot of your testing, right? Like, it's like we thought that was going to be the big deck, and I think a lot of people on the same idea as us, which is Boba is great.
Yeah, and I don't think it was going to be the most played deck because it's the best, but just because it's cheap compared to, you could buy that whole deck for the cost of one Darth Vader, pretty much. Like,
yeah, exactly. I think ECL's definitely pushed, and I think Boba has some questions to answer. I don't think the sky's falling yet.
No,
because it's early days, and
moving forward, people are gonna like everyone. If you haven't worked it out, Boba Fett's the boogeyman. Tech your decks to beat Boba.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that we can probably sort of wrap it up there. Really,
we were going for a tight 30, 40, and we're on 56 minutes now.
Right.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we'll get it down eventually, but if not, loads of people on the weekend said, "Oh, it's great to see us back." They love our our style. I'll say our style. So, it's great to have all the love and affection. If you have got any feedback on episode 1, episode 2, drop it in a comment, DM us. Just let us know.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.
This is the Alliance Dispatch. Over and out.